You'll never survive 24 hours in this U.S. prison. There's a place in the United States where time doesn't just pass, it disappears. A place where men spend years without hearing another human voice, without touching another human being. Where a single mistake doesn't get you punished, it gets you erased. And if you walked in here today, you wouldn't last 24 hours. Before we go any further, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Because what you're about to see, most people will never understand. The most isolated prison in America. Deep in the mountains of Colorado sits one of the most secure prisons ever built. ADX Florence. Officially known as the Administrative Maximum Facility, it's often called the Alcatraz of the Rockies. But that nickname doesn't come close to describing what happens inside. This isn't a prison built to rehabilitate. It's built to contain the most dangerous men alive. Terrorists. Cartel leaders. Serial killers. Men who have proven that even prison walls can't hold them. So here, the system doesn't take chances. Every movement is controlled. Every second is monitored. And every inmate is locked inside a world designed to break them slowly. But the real question is, what would happen if someone like you walked in here? To understand that, we need to go inside. Arrival, your first hours. You don't arrive at a place like this, you're delivered. Shackled at your wrists. Chains around your waist. Leg irons restricting every step. No talking. No eye contact. No mistakes. Because from the moment you step off that bus, you are no longer a person. You are a risk to be managed. Inside intake, everything is stripped away. Clothes. Identity. Even your sense of time. You're searched, thoroughly. Then issued a standard uniform. No personal items. No comfort. Just fabric and silence. And then comes the moment most inmates never forget. The walk to your cell. A narrow corridor. Cold concrete. No windows. No sound except your own breathing. And when that door closes behind you, you realize something terrifying. It's not just locked. It's sealed. The cell, your entire world. Your world is now an 8 by 12-foot concrete box. The bed is a slab. The desk is a slab. Everything is fixed, bolted, unmovable. Even the mirror is polished steel, just enough to remind you who you used to be. There's a small window, but you can't see the outside world. Only sky. No bars. Just reinforced doors and thick walls. This is not a cell meant for living. It's a cell designed for control. You will spend 23 hours a day in here. Alone. No cellmate. No conversation. No human contact. And as the hours pass, something begins to change. At first, it's the silence. Then, it's your thoughts. And what happens next is even worse. Time doesn't exist here. There are no clocks in your cell. No schedule you can see. No way to measure time except meals, and even those feel random. Breakfast arrives. Then silence. Then lunch. Then silence again. Days blur into each other. You start counting cracks in the wall, footsteps in the hallway, the number of times your heart beats in a minute. But eventually, even that stops working. Because your brain wasn't designed for this kind of isolation. Studies have shown that prolonged solitary confinement can cause hallucinations, paranoia, even complete psychological breakdown. And here, that's not a side effect. It's part of the system. So the real question becomes, how long before your mind turns against you? The power structure you can't see. In most prisons, power is visible. Gangs. Hierarchies. Violence. But here, power is invisible. There are no yard politics. No alliances you can build. No one to impress or fear directly. Because control doesn't come from inmates. It comes from the system itself. Every door is remote controlled. Every movement is tracked. Every interaction is monitored. You don't fight other inmates here. You fight the structure. And the structure always wins. But even in a place like this, there are rules. Unwritten rules. And breaking them doesn't just make your life harder. It makes it unbearable. The rules of survival. Rule number 1, comply. Not because you respect authority, but because resistance has consequences. Refuse an order, and your privileges disappear. Push too far, and you're placed on restriction. That means less time outside your cell. Less human interaction. Less of everything. Rule number 2, control your emotions. Outbursts don't help you here. They isolate you further. And rule number 3, protect your mind. Because in a place where your body is already confined, your thoughts are the last thing you have left. But even that isn't safe. Because what happens next breaks even the strongest inmates. Recreation, a cage within a cage. You get 1 hour a day outside your cell. They call it recreation. But it's not what you think. You're escorted, alone, to another concrete enclosure. High walls. No view. Just a small opening at the top where you can see a piece of sky. Some inmates call it the dog run. Because that's what it feels like. You can walk in circles, do push-ups, stare at the sky, but you're still alone. And sometimes, that hour becomes the most painful part of your day. Because it reminds you of everything you've lost. Human contact, almost non-existent. In a normal prison, interaction is constant. Here, it's rare. Guards speak to you through the door. Medical visits happen in restraints. Even conversations are controlled and limited. Some inmates go days without hearing their own name spoken. Weeks without having a real conversation. And over time, something strange happens. You forget how to interact. Words feel foreign. Voices sound distant. Even eye contact becomes uncomfortable. And that's when isolation stops being a condition and becomes your reality. Punishment inside punishment. If you think this is already extreme, there's another level. It's called the Special Housing Unit. A prison within the prison. Here, restrictions tighten even further. Less light, less time outside, even fewer privileges. For some inmates, this is where they break completely. Because at this level, you're not just isolated. You're erased. And once you reach this point, getting out isn't guaranteed. The men who live here, the men inside ADX Florence, aren't ordinary criminals. They're individuals who have already proven they can't be controlled in any other environment. Some orchestrated violence from inside other prisons. Some escape facilities once thought escape-proof. Others committed crimes so severe, there was nowhere else to send them. But here's the unsettling part. Even the most dangerous men struggle here. Because this place doesn't rely on force. It relies on something far more powerful. Deprivation. What 24 hours really feels like. Now imagine, it's your first full day. You wake up on a concrete slab. No noise. No movement. Breakfast arrives through a slot. You eat alone. Hours pass. You try to stay calm. Try to stay focused. But your mind starts racing. Every sound feels amplified. Every silence feels heavier. By the time night comes, you're exhausted. But sleep doesn't come easy. Because the lights never fully go out. And your thoughts don't stop. And that's just one day. Now imagine 10 years. Why most people wouldn't last. People often think survival in prison is about strength. But here, strength isn't enough. You can't fight your way out. You can't talk your way out. You can't even distract yourself. Because everything has been designed to remove those options. What you're left with is yourself. And for most people, that's the hardest thing to face. ADX Florence doesn't just confine the body. It tests the limits of the human mind. It strips away identity, routine, connection. Until all that remains is time. Slow, endless, unforgiving time. And maybe that's the real punishment. Not the walls. Not the isolation. But the realization that tomorrow will be exactly the same. And the day after that. And the day after that. So if you ever wondered whether you could survive 24 hours in a place like this, the truth is, most people wouldn't even survive themselves. The sound of nothing. Silence in a place like this isn't peaceful. It's oppressive. At first, you might think you can handle it. Maybe even appreciate it. No noise. No chaos. No threats. But that kind of silence isn't natural. There are no conversations in the background. No distant footsteps. No voices echoing through the halls. Just a low, constant hum of ventilation systems, and your own breathing. And over time, your brain starts trying to fill that silence. Some inmates report hearing whispers. Others hear footsteps that never arrive. Not because something is there, but because your mind refuses to accept that nothing is. And when that happens, the silence stops being empty. It becomes something else entirely. Something that follows you, even when you close your eyes. When your mind starts turning, the human brain needs stimulation. Without it, it begins to create its own reality. In places like ADX Florence, inmates have described losing track of simple thoughts. Forgetting words mid-sentence. Repeating the same actions over and over without realizing it. Some begin pacing endlessly. Back and forth. Step after step. Not because they want to, but because stopping feels worse. Others withdraw completely. Sitting still for hours. Staring at walls that never change. And then, there are those who break. Not all at once. But slowly. So slowly, they don't even realize it's happening. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because by the time you notice, it's already too late. Communication, controlled and limited. In a place where voices disappear, communication becomes rare. Letters are one of the only ways inmates can connect to the outside world. But even that is controlled. Every letter is read. Every word is monitored. Phone calls, if allowed, are short and infrequent. And visits? They happen through thick glass. No touch. No closeness. No real connection. Just a voice through a receiver, slightly delayed, slightly distant. And when the call ends, the silence returns. Sometimes even louder than before. Because now, you remember what you're missing. The routine that never changes. Routine is supposed to create stability. But here, it becomes something else. Every day is the same. The same meals. The same walls. The same schedule. There are no surprises. No variation. And while that might sound manageable, it isn't. Because without change, time loses meaning. Monday feels like Thursday. Morning feels like night. And after a while, you stop keeping track. Not because you want to, but because there's no reason to. And that's when the days start blending into something unrecognizable. Control through design. Nothing inside this prison is accidental. Every detail is intentional. Cells are angled so inmates can't communicate with each other. Windows are positioned to show only the sky, never the ground. Even movement through the facility is designed to prevent interaction. You're escorted alone. Always alone. Doors open and close in sequence, ensuring no two inmates cross paths. It's not just about security. It's about separation. Because the less you interact, the easier you are to control. And the longer you stay isolated, the harder it becomes to function any other way. The strange effect of time. Time behaves differently here. Minutes feel longer. Hours feel endless. But weeks? They disappear. Inmates have described entire months passing, without a clear memory of what happened. Not because anything dramatic occurred, but because nothing did. No events. No milestones. Just repetition. And when there's nothing to mark time, your brain stops recording it. Which raises a disturbing question. If you can't remember your days, did they even happen? Resistance, and why it fails. Some inmates try to resist the system. They refuse orders. They shout. They disrupt routines. But here, resistance doesn't create power. It removes what little you have left. Privileges disappear. Isolation deepens. And eventually, most realize something important. You can't fight a system that doesn't engage with you. There's no opponent here. No reaction. Just consequences. And over time, even the most defiant inmates begin to change. Not because they've accepted the system, but because they've understood it. Coping mechanisms, holding on to sanity. Survival here isn't physical. It's mental. Some inmates create strict routines. Exercise. Reading. Writing. Anything to create structure, where none exists. Others turn inward. Meditation. Prayer. Mental exercises. Repeating numbers. Replaying memories. Trying to keep their minds active. Because without that, the mind starts drifting. And once it drifts too far, bringing it back becomes almost impossible. The men who never leave. For many inmates here, this isn't temporary. There's no release date. No transfer. This is where they stay. Year after year. Some have spent decades inside these walls, without ever stepping into a normal prison yard again. And over time, something changes. Not just in how they think, but in who they are. Because when you remove everything that defines a person, what remains? What happens if you get out? Very few inmates leave this place. But when they do, the adjustment isn't easy. Imagine going from complete isolation to a world full of noise, people, and unpredictability. Simple things become overwhelming. Conversations feel unnatural. Crowds feel threatening. Even making basic decisions can become difficult. Because after years of having every moment controlled, freedom doesn't feel normal. It feels unfamiliar. And sometimes, even frightening. The final reality. So what would really happen if you were placed here? Not as an observer. Not as a visitor. But as an inmate. Your first few hours would feel manageable. Confusing, but manageable. Then the silence would settle in. Then the isolation. Then the realization that nothing is going to change. And by the time 24 hours pass, you wouldn't be the same person who walked in. Because this place doesn't just punish actions. It reshapes identity. There are prisons designed to hold people. And then there are places like this, designed to remove them from the world entirely. No noise. No contact. No escape from your own thoughts. Just walls, time, and silence. And maybe that's the most unsettling part. Because in the end, it's not the guards, not the rules, not even the isolation. It's what happens inside your own mind, when there's nothing left to distract it. And if you think you could survive 24 hours in a place like this, ask yourself one question. How long can you truly sit alone? With nothing but your thoughts? Because in here, that's all you have. If this story made you think differently about life inside the most secure prisons in America, take a moment to reflect on what isolation really does to the human mind. There's always more beneath the surface, and what we uncovered today is only part of it. Stay with us for the next story.